Hello everyone and welcome back to the Smell of Optimism. My name is Pratik Nayak and today I'm going to talk about the two most important aspects behind the success of any organization in today's day and age. And those two are trust and cooperation. Now before I begin my today's session, let me just throw a hypothetical scenario across to you all. Let me start with a question. What is our most valuable possession on the planet? What is our most valuable asset on this planet? That's our children, isn't it? That is our children. Now just imagine for a second. One day, you decide to take your wife on a date, ideally. Now you have two small kids and you require someone to take care of them while you are on your date for that evening. You got two options. Option number one, you can either go for a 16-year-old girl who is your neighbor. You have known her for the past 5 years and she has barely, if any, babysitting experience. You have an alternative. The second option is to choose a 32-year-old lady who has just come to your neighborhood, who has got 7 years of babysitting experience and who you don't know pretty well. Who would you choose? You would choose that 16-year-old girl who has got no experience that you require. You still choose that girl over someone who has got 7 years of experience in babysitting. Why? It's because you know this girl and you know something about this girl. You both have managed to form trust and cooperation. So when we can give the most valuable possession on the planet to someone based on trust and cooperation, then why do we do it differently in our work culture? After all, what is a culture? A culture is a group of people with the common sets of ideas and beliefs, right? What is a nation? A nation is a group of people with the common sets of ideas and beliefs. Then what should a corporate be? It should be a group of people with the common sets of ideas and beliefs. Then the question is, why do we do it differently in our work environment? Why do we get so much occupied with a person's resume while going through the interview process to know how many years of experience has he got, whether he has worked with our competitor or not? And we put less priority on some intangible yet valuable qualities like what is his vision, what is his why, what are his beliefs and ideas. Why do we give less importance to those who should be given the most importance? Why do our companies fail to understand one simple aspect, that a human is a mechanism? A human mechanism is all about trust and cooperation. Because when we meet someone who believes what we believe, trust and cooperation emerge. Now make no mistake of it, trust is a feeling. Just by doing something which you said you were going to do does not mean that you are trustworthy. It doesn't mean that people will trust you. It simply means that you are reliable. That's all it is. And likewise, when your senior asks you to do some job, you would do it not because you both have formed a cooperation, but because he is holding a higher authority and a higher rank over you, and that's why you will do exactly what he asks you to do, but you will not follow him. You know why? Because your senior knows how to be in charge, but he has practiced less of taking care of those who are in his charge. And you know this. And you know this. And that is why you will do what he says, but you will never follow him as a leader. That is what trust and cooperation do. And that's the importance of trust and cooperation, right? A human, as it turns out, is a social machine who is constantly evaluating and judging others. The question is how? How do we evaluate and how do we judge other human beings? Right? So we evaluate and we judge them by the actions that they take and by the decisions that they make. And that is why I always say and always believe that every single decision that you take and that you make is a piece of communication to the outside world about who you are and what you believe. By making even a small decision, a company is able to communicate to its stakeholders about what it stands for. And it is very important, as you see, to deliver the outsiders the message about who you are, and you will then attract those who believe in you and who believe what you believe. Right. Let me give you one small example of the magic of trust and cooperation. Just imagine you have recently bought an iPhone from an Apple store and you have just come out of the store with your new iPhone in your hand and you see a kid, a small kid, sitting on the bench with his Apple Mac playing a video game. What do? You go past him and you say, hey. And he says, hey. Right, we all do this, don't we? Why do you do that? Leave him alone. The reason why you do this is because although you don't know that kid very well, you know something about that kid. Right? You share common beliefs and common ideas. You both want to show to the world who you are. And that is why we want to surround ourselves by the products and in the environment which can clearly articulate who we are and what are our values and what are our beliefs. And then only we can attract those who believe what we believe. Correct? And once we can attract those who believe what we believe, we can create trust and we can create cooperation. Now, there is one more way whereby which you can create trust and cooperation. And this is human touch. A human touch. A human touch is very important to create a cooperation and to create a trust. Imagine you go to a corporate seminar, right? And you happen to meet a stranger in one of the business meetings, and you both discover that you both want the same thing from one of the projects, and you both are ready to merge your resources to work on one same project to get the maximum return. So you both decide to form a partnership together. You have the partnership agreement on the table and you both go towards the table to sign that agreement, and just before signing the agreement, you extend your hand towards that person to shake, and that person refuses to shake your hand. What would you do? So on one hand, you have a piece of contract which has got all terms and all conditions. Most of them are in your favor, but there is no handshake. You would either cancel the whole deal or you will enter into the agreement with a doubt in your mind. Correct? Now just imagine for a second, you give preference to less favorable terms and conditions with a handshake over more favorable terms and conditions but without a handshake. That is what handshake does. That is what a human touch does. It brings the trust and the cooperation, and we as social animals, we are built in such a way that we cannot operate without do this without these two functions. And trust and cooperation are a distinctly human experience. Trust is not a command and cooperation is not a request. They are a distinctly human experience. And those two things can only come when you meet with someone who believes what you believe. Right. And speaking of trust and cooperation, one example that comes to my mind and which shakes me up every time when I think of it is the example of our military. So in business world, we have colleagues, but in military world, there are brothers and sisters. Right? Now, one fine day, I was watching a TV show, and this show was covering some of the parts of AMF, the Australian Military Force, and the guy who was being interviewed, he was from the Land Forces of Australia, which we now call an Australian Army Force. Now, this guy was asked too many questions, one of which was very specific, and this question grabbed my attention. And as is my nature, I immediately put down all the work that I was doing at that time, and I grabbed my eyes, I grabbed the remote, and I turned on the volume, and I listened to this question more precisely. Now, this question was, the reporter goes, you put your life in danger every single day for someone who you sometimes don't even know. Why? This was the question. To which this soldier replies, the reason why I do this every single day, even for a stranger, is because I know that if the time comes, he would do the same thing for me. That is what he replies. He would do the same thing for me. That's why I do it for him, even though he is a stranger who I sometimes don't even know. Right? And I wasn't surprised by his answer, because I know that on that day, this answer was the most common answer which would come out from anybody's mouth from that army force, because they had managed to develop the trust and the cooperation between each other. So when the danger comes, they know that there is someone who can watch their back. They can take risks, knowingly that someone will be there to take care of their families when they are gone. That is the magic of trust and cooperation. Right? Speaking of military and comparing the military with today's business. In military, they give medals to people who are willing to sacrifice themselves so that others may gain. In the businesses, we are willing to sacrifice others and we give bonuses to people who are willing to sacrifice others so that we may gain. In military, they are ready to sacrifice their lives. In the businesses, we are not ready to give even a single credit to our colleague. And that's the difference. And that's the difference. So the question is, how do we bring the military culture into our work culture, our business culture? And as it turns out, the only way you can bring the qualities of the military culture into a business culture is by creating that environment, right? Because we as human, we respond to the environment that we are in. You put a good person into a bad environment, he turns out to be very bad. If you put a bad person who the whole society might have given up on into a good environment, and he will surprise us. That is the distinctly quality of a human being. We respond to the environment that we are in. And it is a job of a leader and the managers to create that environment. The same environment which is created in the military can be created in the business world as well. In the military, we have lieutenants who are equivalent to the managers and the leaders in the business environment. So in the business environment, if the managers and the leaders are able to create an environment whereby every single employee inspires to wake up in the morning and go to work, feels safe when he is at work, and returns home fulfilled by the work that he has done for the day, then this kind of culture can be brought into the business environment as well. If the leaders are able to create an environment whereby people are ready to take risks, which require failure, by the way, but they know that if they fail, there are leaders, there are people who can take care of them, who will watch their back, right? And then only leaders are able to bring that environment where trust and cooperation prevail, where an employee can go beyond, I would say, to help another colleague, sometimes even at his own cost, right? And that is when the time comes when an employee would ask another employee, how do you feel about your job? The other employee would say, I love my job. Not I like my job, I love my job. It is very easy to like your job. It is very easy to like our kids, but you love your job. You love your kids. You don't like your kids, right? And that is the environment which the leaders are responsible to create, where the trust and the cooperation prevail. So thank you so much for watching me today. And I'll see you very soon with another video under the smell of optimism with another thought. Thank you and have a great day.